We are back for another project. I didn't finish the last one, but that's actually no shame with Mayhem 3, because the end game is just such a grind. And I was busy for the last months and built my own mod, Star Wars Mayhem 3. So let's create a galaxy. Just pick a name. Well, let's call it Django. Galaxy size, average, sounds good. No fog, no space particles. I like to start with advanced galaxy expansion. We don't choose any dominant race and no minority race. I don't recommend to fiddle around with those because Star Wars Mayhem 3 has kind of its own global scale balancing thing going on. So the Empire will, for example, always be a very powerful faction, and we don't need to make them the dominant faction. But of course you can always tweak these settings like you want. Also the relations, for example, make rebels friend with the New Republic if you like. But the default experience is to keep everything dynamic and also play with each faction. We're not going to play with a shattered galaxy. I want to keep this standard with many gate connections. And otherwise we only use limited enclaves. Yeah, sounds good. So let's generate the galaxy and run the game. All right, we are in with the new starting screen. And let's choose a nice faction, for example, the New Republic. So this playthrough won't be a full let's play. I want to make it quick and also just focus on a few new things, show the main mod a bit, what's it all about and how it plays. And I have implemented a few shortcuts that you can take if you are a very experienced or impatient player. Then you might not want to go through this early game grind that Mayhem 3 always has. This is, it's nice, it can be nice, but once you have played it a dozen times, then you want to get to the meat, to the gritty meat of the game, which is the empire building and the wars. So we have a new game start, and while the galaxy is getting created, we can choose our customization options from the game start. These haven't been changed too much. We won't choose an extra ship. We will get a bit of starting money, good reputation, some blueprints, and knowledge of quite a lot of sectors. This setting here, this difficulty setting, affects the hostile factions like pirates and the Xenon, which are now Sith. And we are going for medium. Now we have a new game start, which is even more advanced than the usual quick start option that you had. And I also added a small description. So you get basically a starting kit to instantly build a small 4-sector empire. So lots of factories, lots of ships, even bigger ships. And this skips about 2 to 3 days of early game exploration and reputation grind and missions basically. And you can start right at the point where Star Wars Mayhem 3 really takes off. And that is when the Mandalorian faction arrives in the galaxy. So when we click this button, mid-game quick start, we immediately get a very large fleet of ships. We get a second large transport This lags a bit because all these ships are in this same sector, but when the game world is created, it also gets better with the performance. So you get a lot of ships, including a frigate, this assault frigate Mark 1 from the New Republic. So you can go and start to poke some pirates instantly. We also get a few corvettes and a lot of freighters and I think miners too. Yeah, a few miners, basically everything you need to keep a 4-sector empire running. And we have this special large transport, which can only be obtained with this Gamestart. And he holds a host of factories and outposts and a lot of resources. But the downside to this big ship is that the maintenance is very expensive. So this was my solution to kind of force you to get rid of this ship as quickly as possible because it's so expensive. So what you want to do is to just place an outpost and then unload your stations and then recycle this ship to get rid of the high cost. So that's what we're going to do. We want to establish our empire fairly quickly. We already get knowledge of more sectors than usual, but we still have to explore a bit and find a good starting sector.
Emergency signal from Mines of Fortune.
Yeah, that's the remnant ship that we can collect, which is not as valuable with this Gamestart. So let's go exploring and find a good sector. I have sent my freighters in the surrounding sectors to explore a bit, and they found an A-wing, which makes an excellent explorer once we have our first satellite factory. So one of our guys is going to grab it. We have to find an empty sector in this area somewhere where we can build our first outpost and unload, so to speak. I really like this sector from the Galactic Empire here. It has the absolute maximum population that you can get, and the station support, sun intensity, research, everything is good with that, and we will keep this in mind. In the background you can see one of the new skyboxes. Star Wars Mayhem 3 comes with the backgrounds pack that I released last year. This is already included, so you don't have to install it separately. And we just found the perfect starting sector. Population is also at the maximum almost. Good research rate. Station support is a bit low, but we are mirroring the food consumption and production of the Empire sector that we want to claim later. So we can even do without the no food consumption perk, which I would like for this playthrough. So we are going to start here. We still have a lot of time. The starting money you get in the mid-game quick start is 5 million, and that gives you about 60 hours until you run out of money and have to set up your empire. And that mostly comes from this very expensive TL, which holds all the stations for your empire. So we're going to send them over and fly to this sector. And then start our empire there. Here we have 2 Sith. Let's take them down. I think we can do this. At the time of recording this video, we are still on version 1.3, and 1.4 is this current build that I'm playing on, and that includes a rebalance of most fighters. They are much more tanky, the shields are stronger, and I will see how this goes and then maybe tweak it a bit more before releasing to the public. But I think it's better to have a bit more durable fighters, because that also allows me to reduce their numbers a bit and increase the performance this way. And this guy just turned around and they're going to hunt us now.
Target is now in firing range.
Let's see how this goes. Yeah, once the shields are down, they die easily. But they are a lot tougher, but so am I. The E-wing I'm sitting in right now. So it's not that big of a deal. So our starting sector also has a hyperlane. And hyperlanes are a new concept in Star Wars Mayhem 3. These replace the old Terran memory. They don't have anything to do with research or building ships, unlocking Terran ships and stuff like that. Now they are a new sector trait. There is a new option, a new optional mode that you can play to have these hyperlanes work as a restriction for your jumping around the map. So these are the only sectors where your jump beacons are gonna work. But you have to activate this in the game files. This won't be active on default because it makes the game way harder. And in this playthrough I'm not playing with it. And on default this only serves as an entry level for jump beacons. You basically have to capture one of these sectors and then you're done with this quest. It's a new quest that you get at the end of your ascension. And it just asks you to build any outpost in any hyperlane sector, and then you're done with it. And the thinking behind that is to just give you a bit more to think about when choosing your early starting locations. So sometimes you get a bit unlucky and you might not have a free hyperlane sector, or it might have bad stats. And then you might want to delay it, and you don't claim a hyperlane sector right away. Maybe go for this one, which doesn't have a hyperlane. And then you kind of get this pressure that you have to unlock a hyperlane sector at some point to get jump beacons. But the NPCs are also claiming the remaining sectors, and then you might have to go for an NPC controlled one and conquer it from them. But also conquering sectors from the NPCs in the early game is way easier in Star Wars Mayhem 3, as you will soon see. Even without this very advanced start with which gives you a fleet, because certain factions are really weak. They do tend to get stronger as the game goes on, but you can play a lot more aggressive in this mod. And of course we also have all the good loot from the Gamestart. This Republican police force just blew up a rebel trader, and we have these motivators floating around which are very valuable, and I sent my freighter to claim it. Time to get our other ships which are still stuck in the starting sector. Let's broadcast to all freighters and fly to our new sector. We will consolidate here and then expand from that point. Just get the first basic factories and then see what's around us. Maybe we have a Sith sector in the surrounding area and then we have to take it out. But it doesn't seem like we have a gate at the east side. So this could be a dead end and a good place to start. Our A-wing has catched up, and I will do a small spacewalk and repair him. Then we can switch ships, because this is the fastest ship available to us. And I like to be more mobile until I can teleport myself. Well, let's see what we need to get from our other ship, just the data scanner. And then I will send him to explore a bit more. So here's a nice trick that you can do if you have a ship and want to unlock sectors and don't have an explorer yet. Then usually you have to kind of tell them to, for example, fly through the east gate. But you can also tell them to fly safe to another sector and then target a distant sector that may have been revealed to you from the abandoned ships, where you get the hints at the game start. So if I send him over here, then he will search for a safe route and avoiding Sith sectors on the way, and that will unlock a lot of sectors at once without that much micromanagement. Just found an abandoned X-Wing. There are many more abandoned ships at Gamestart, and also more possible classes, not just M3 fighters, also the smaller ones, which are now way more competent. So the A-Wing, for example, also has, not the strongest shields, but it can also compete in a battle scenario. So they are much more valuable, and they will spawn at the beginning of the game. Here we can see one of the early CIS fleets, just a few frigates. They will get more powerful ships later in the game. Right now they just mostly focus on their Vulture droid fighters, which have also been beefed up a lot, but they are the most fragile fighter in the game. Now they have a 25 megajoule shield and 4 very weak lasers. What we should do is buy some better weapons for our flagship, because I noticed it spawned with kind of crap main guns. So I have sent a freighter to the Marcus Corporation to buy 10 phased array laser cannons. Weapons are not very expensive in Mayhem, so when you can switch them out, you should do that. And then let him follow our assault frigate to exchange the weapons and ramp up our firepower. We will need it sooner rather than later. Time to build our first outpost. I'm going to put it a bit outside the traffic lane.
Incoming message. Command accepted.
And that also completes the Hyperlane Studies quest and gives us a small reward in the form of 2 jump beacons, so that you are a bit more mobile. You don't have to build the factory for jump drive cores and still have 2 beacons to work with.
Docking granted.
And I'm using my TL that you get from the Mayhem plot to transport another beacon over here, and then we can connect this sector, and I'm claiming it right away with another outpost. This is our TL from the special Gamestart.
You have lost recognition.
That costs us a bit of reputation with the Rebel Alliance as our neighbors. But the mid-game Gamestart also gives you enough reputation to claim 4 sectors.
Incoming message. Login granted. Command accept new mission received.
And we just got the mission that will give me the teleporting device. That's very nice. As for the perks, I will develop both of these sectors into production centers because the population is so good. That increases our ship production speed. This will be the most important. But we also have to consider our early game needs. Right now I would like to reduce my maintenance costs, so I will unlock the dry dock perk. And we are definitely going for the insurance policy on both outposts, because we are going to dump a ton of resources in here. And if a bad event like a storage fire happens, then we are losing a lot of them. So this insurance policy will prevent that. And the risk to get bad events is very high if your population is big. And on the other outpost, I'm going to also unlock the insurance policy. And then the cheaper stations. This will be our location where we build our factories. And then probably the laser manufacture for the ships. Yeah. We will have a bit of an energy shortage for quite some time because both of our sectors don't have very good sun intensity. And we don't have that many factory slots, and those are much too valuable to waste them for solar plants with this kind of low sun intensity, in my opinion. So we will skip the entire energy-based economy part and try to import that. But we do have a ton of waste from all of our people. So we might want to focus on those goods which are based on waste. So let's start with a satellite factory. That is energy based, but we need it, and I'm even going to build a second one because satellites are a good early game trade good. The NPCs also need it, and they will buy from your factory if you open it. So I'm building a second satellite factory right away, and we will put both of them in each sector and see if we can sell to the NPCs. And then we will build a chemical lab, which consumes waste. That's the only stuff that we have. The chemicals go into the Dura steel foundry. Then we can make hull plating. So that's a good starting setup for this sector, I think. And then we have 3 more factory slots. And that could be food factories. Because food is also often a good trading good to make some money. I'm going to leave 1 factory slot open for now, Let's get the TL back into the dry dock. And our second TL is at the outpost with the jump beacons. Going to load them up. And place it near the outpost. So I will set up my trader settings, my agent settings, my 2 jump beacons, put some guards on them, and then also do the resource transfer. Most of our resources are stuck in this sector, and I will kind of equalize them. Because we can already build ships in both of them, and we have quite a lot of starting resources and a few blueprints, including a blueprint for the frigate that we already have, the assault frigate, so I might build a second one right away. And improve our military. I have used my initial favor point to unlock the mapping service. This is always good to start out with, and it gives you a lot of additional satellites for free. The New Republic has placed a few of them, and we are getting better knowledge where the factions are. Always nice to have. I have opened my satellite factory for NPC traders and gave it a bit of money so that it can run on its own. The TL with the jump beacons has made its way to the other sector, and we have completed the connection. So I loaded up more factories and went back and built another food production chain, and we will also put an extra hull plating facility in this sector. I don't have the resources yet to supply it, but we will soon get that. And also our first research station. Putting that down. In Star Wars Mayhem 3 you now also get a small tutorial about research stations and what you might want to research first. And we get a new quest. But first we will dock at this pirate station, because I think they sell us some equipment related to hacking, the root kit and hacker chips, and I want to buy some and get started. Because hacking will also be a way to make money. Right now my only money maker is the satellite factory in the sector, and I'm building a second one here. Because satellites can also be sold. I don't have any energy yet, but I can import it and still make a good profit. At least that has worked in the past, and I don't see why this should be different. Many NPC outposts have the solar panels perk, so after a while you have a good saturated energy market. And as long as we have means to make money, we should be fine. So this pirate base already spawned a corvette and killed one of my traders, or my freighters that I have sent out to explore. So eventually we will have to deal with them. Let's get the root kit and a couple hacker chips. Maybe, yeah, no more than 6 or let's say 10. And then get the hell away from here before the next batch of pirates spawns. This is the guy who caused us trouble, so I brought the entire crew. And we can test our assault frigate. this is really the essence of what I wanted to change with Star Wars Mayhem 3, that you can get into the action a lot earlier and get some toys to play with, just to reduce the insane amount of economic grind that's in the game. Everything of that is still in there, but you can just, yeah, if you want, skip it. For the most part, if you increase your risk during the new Mandalorian plot, you can take some decisions to introduce a bit of a time limit for your playthrough, and the pacing will be much faster. And then you have toys like these, this early fleet, so you can immediately take on some stronger opponents without giving you the ability to build more of these ships. And you don't have to skip the entire early game if you don't want, but it's possible. You have the freedom. And this was a nice bounty for the pirate. We can really use that money to buy more parts. I usually like to keep my stock levels fairly balanced, so don't hoard as many resources, but also always buy some to keep a minimum stock. And for the first outpost, this was no problem because we have so many resources from the game start. But I also want to fill up the second one. Both of these are supposed to build ships. And filling this one up is going to be expensive and we need more money. This is also a good example of the improved pacing. Here we have an Imperial battle group which is invading a Republic sector. And what you will notice in Star Wars Mayhem 3 is that the early game fleets of the NPCs are much smaller than usual. So in basic Mayhem, in standard Mayhem 3, a fleet like this, a battle group, would have about 3 of those big ships. Here we have just 1 and a couple of smaller ships. And this will change as the game goes on. And this is entirely based on your own progress. When your player empire gets bigger, eventually you trigger the next phase, so to speak. And this is what drives everything, the amount of sectors that you own. And that's what's gonna make the NPCs stronger. And they start with such weak fleets for 2 reasons. For one, this is a very great way to keep the game world in a conserved state. So a big problem with Mayhem was always that the player takes too long and the NPCs are very powerful and you can't do shit. And you have to settle in these unknown sectors here. Have to grab what you can because you cannot take the factions head on. And during that time, when you take very long, the NPCs would wage wars, and in this case the Empire would probably gobble up the rest of the factions. But because their fleets are so weak, and this is especially true for the invasion fleets, all the battle group fleets, the offensive ones, which can actually conquer sectors. And because they are so weak, this takes much longer. So as long as the player doesn't progress the plot or his own player empire and trigger the next stages, the game world will stay almost as it was in the beginning. So not many sectors will change hands, and you have this kind of setup almost preserved for the player until he is ready. And the second reason is to give the player more opportunities and options in the early game And this is exactly what we are going to do. So we are going to attack the Empire, and this is not that far away. I'm just gonna grab the 3 ships that we're getting from the quest, and then we are going to attack them. And we can get away with this because the early game fleets of the NPCs are so weak. And this just leads to this overall better pacing, in my opinion, that you can do a lot more. And later in the game, when the NPCs get more powerful, they can also compete with your large player empire. So the overall flow should be much better. Star Wars Mayhem 3 is basically a culmination of a lot of ideas that I had in the past and that have been finally realized in one big package. And I think it will make Mayhem 3 that much more enjoyable. For example, it always bugged me that researching ships takes so long. It makes sense for the first batch, for the first big capital ship that you unlock. For example, I have now started to research the Nebula Star Destroyer. But when you have unlocked your first capital ship, you have basically reached this ship class, and then it really makes no sense that the rest takes as long, at least for me. So there is now a new research discount, and the Gamestart that I chose already gave me 500 points. And what's going to happen is when you research a project, when you complete it, then you get a share of the entire cost as permanent discount. And then all other projects are getting cheaper. So for example, with our 500 point discount that we already started with, we can immediately unlock any of the smaller ships, any fighter, because none of them is more expensive than 500 points. So with just one research tick, which is 20 minutes, you can unlock any ship. And during the game, this only gets cheaper. So when you have unlocked your first couple bigger ships, then it's much easier to get more alternative variants, other capital ships, and you can diversify your fleet more. Because often you only had a very limited amount of different ships, and that wasn't that enjoyable for me, and unlocking the rest was a huge grind. And then another idea that is now in this mod is, what if the player gets a few early capital ships? It always takes so long to unlock them, and of course it should be a great reward, but how about just adding a little bit to spice things up and allow the player to wage some early wars? So now there is a new quest where it's just a bit of fluff around a search for a part of the lost Katana fleet. So you get the option to research a data pad, and this is instant, and this just gives you the location of an abandoned capital ship in the game world. Or basically you don't get the location, but the ship spawns and you can claim it, but you have to search it first. And this is a small quest that allows you to get a few capital ships. They are a bit special and they are not very powerful, but they are capital ships. And so you can build a small early fleet with that, and they are very cheap. So they don't cost any maintenance. So now we have a frigate in an unknown sector somewhere in the game world, and we have to find it. For example, with our satellite network. Now let's see if we can locate it. So I'm looking for the Bale ships, which are in the galaxy. Oh, we have some Sith Patrols. They are also getting active. And as you can see, we have a lot of Bale ships from the game start, which are still in the galaxy because the AI cannot claim these early ships. only the ones that bail during the game. And we don't have this capital ship, which is now ready for the taking on our satellite monitoring. So we have to continue exploring the game world and hopefully find it. And always pick up the loot that you find lying on the street. These are 13 yellow crystals, about 100k. And we are in a sector where we can sell these. And an abandoned X-Wing. Gonna take this one too. And then we have to search for the abandoned Katana ship. I think it might be somewhere in this area here. We definitely know it's in a neutral sector, an unknown empty sector. And those are often near Sith territory. And we have a Sith Patrol here. So there are probably more empty sectors around here. Because the Katana ship is definitely not in the sectors that we have unlocked. And that we are monitoring with our satellites. We also got quality of life improvements. So the repair laser with SETA in the spacesuit is also included. Well, let's just tell our freighter to sell the yellow crystals. And he will head over to this trading station back there. So repairing the ships that you find on the road is very quick. Yeah, but you should claim them.
Ship computer control transferred.
Then hop in and we take a look in this eastern corner of the map. There are a few sectors which hold great loot. For example, this one. Thousands of power converters and stuff. But we have Sith. So that might be a good target to send our small fleet next. And bring the large transport to loot the stuff. Let's do that. We are going to gather at the east gate, at the west gate. I wanted to place an ore mine, but the yields in my sector are not so good and the other still needs to be explored. Let's see. Ah no, we have a high yield ore asteroid. Let's go for it. Moving ships between my two sectors is very quick because I have jump beacons and the range is also slightly higher in Star Wars Mayhem 3. So they have a larger radius where the ships can simply teleport.
Entering system Empire's Edge.
And here we have another Imperial battle group. But seems like they are on the defensive.
Rear guard.
It's a guard force. The Empire is probably the most powerful faction in this mod. And every faction is unique. This is also something I wanted to do. Don't have everything samey as in Mayhem 3, where the factions are kind of balanced. In Star Wars Mayhem 3 they are inspired by the real lore and they use different fleets. And there are even different rules for each faction. But we will get to that. Let me just place this mine first. This one seems closer. And then we have our large transport follow the flagship, the assault frigate, and gather our forces to take the Sith down. And if I find some satellites to buy on my way, then I will do so that we can scout ahead with our new X-Wing. Let's kill this pirate, because my imperial reputation has got 2 major hits, because the police scanned me and found the hacker chips, which are illegal. So I might want to drop them or get the cargo bay shielding equipment so that they don't notice that I'm a criminal. So this is a pirate M3 and we are sitting in an M5. And still we should be able to manage this. Ah, we found the ship. This is the Katana ship, which is just floating in space. And we have a mission to grab it. So this was another idea to give the player a bit of early game power. But these ships are special. They are part of a lost Republican fleet from the expanded universe, and they are pretty outdated in the lore at least, and in the game I tried to replicate this by making them special. So they don't have any shields, and I dumped their hit points entirely in the hull and gave them a bit extra. This experiment was pretty successful in my rebalance mod, so I wanted to bring some of that back to Star Wars Mayhem 3. So generally the capships don't follow this logic, but this type of ship does. It's the only ship in the game, and here this shield experiment is ramped up to the maximum because these ships don't have any shields. So the explanation is that on their voyage they lost them entirely. So whenever you take damage on this ship, the damage is permanent. The hull is very tough and small lasers have a hard time to do even slight damage to it. But you will have to repair this ship. And the weapons are also not too powerful.
Ship computer control transfer. Incoming message.
Of course, it's a capital ship, but the weapon is only medium grade. Tiny bit better than medium grade, maybe. The ship is also pretty fast. It's not one of the slower capital ships, and it doesn't cost any maintenance. So you can have these as a backup and just bring them in when you need the firepower, and otherwise they won't cause you any trouble. They won't cost you. There is no way to replicate these ships. So they are pretty special. And when you lose them, they are gone forever. Very good against fighters, because they are so resistant with their strong hull. And you get missions. So we just got the second mission. And here the Death Watch just asks us to decrypt another data pad. And then we get more hints to multiple ships. So let's just do that. Decrypting the fragment. And now we get the info that 2 more ships are in any Sith sector. So the second stage has a bit more risk to it, because now you have to search these brown sectors.
Objective updated.
And they are way more dangerous, obviously.
Docking granted. Command accepted.
And you won't know where the next batch of ships are. But once you complete this quest, you have 3 of those capital ships. And this is already a major force to attack some early factions. Now let's fight for our loot. The TL is already on the way and going to pick up the millions worth of stuff that's in this sector. The Sith just responded by sending another patrol. With a special targeting signature on one of my ships, so they will send a fleet from this sector. We are right here. And I have to be careful because my shields are already down. We will have to repair in the outpost. Didn't pay attention. And those Sith are also using missiles against me, and I don't have missile defense yet.
In the name of Queen Atrius and the Kingdom of Boron, we thank you for your valuable assistance.
But at least we survived.
Critical accelerator cannon.
Okay, we will hold this line and let our TL collect the loot. And see from where they are coming to protect it. I'm going to position myself on the east gate because we are monitoring the south gate in case the Sith are coming this route. We will see them. And then we can meet them here. Here's the bulk cruiser. And I should get a teleportation device, the transporter device, so that he can beam the loot inside. Because I think I might have to leave the sector for this stuff to work properly. And they are taking the empty sector to get to us. So let's go to the south gate. Get in position.
Command accepted.
And shield our TL, which is just picking up the wares. I have sent him to focus on these power converters, because this is easily the most valuable commodity. Want to grab those resources, the very expensive ones like the power converters and the motivators, especially since they are resources which are energy based and I don't have any energy production yet, so those almost 7,000 power converters are perfectly suited for my empire, and they will bring me a long way. In the meantime, I'm going to scan a few mining ships with the hacking root kit so that we may establish a secondary income and steal some money from these guys. And I like to focus on mining ships because they never leave their system. and it's very predictable where they will be. So if you focus on these ships to make them your botnet, then you can rely on them. They survive, they stay in position, and they are basically always available when you need to do a virus attack. Because other ships, if they tend to die, if you start infecting ships which are part of a battle group, for example, then those will frequently die and get replaced, and then you are losing your backdoors. And your botnet gets smaller and you can't do the hacks anymore. So compromising a ship doesn't mean that you actually want to hack it. You can also use it as a requirement, as a relay to do hacks against other ships. We also got a few reinforcement corvettes that I built in the outpost with the starting resources. And we can still last a bit with them. I have ordered up a second assault frigate to give us a small fleet. And the Katana Dreadnought cruiser is also on its way, but it still takes a while to get to us. It started from the sector and is somewhere here. And it's not like our TL will die instantly when it makes first contact with the enemy, so everything should be under control.
Entering system. Tears of greed. Command accepted.
Still, this time I'm going to send my other ships in first, so I'm raising the scanning range. That my frigate doesn't take the brunt of the force. Here's the TL. Still a lot of resources left in this sector. And finally we also got a response from the Republic, which are coming in with a guard fleet. They are still using designs from the old Republic era. This is the early game phase, and when we reach the middle part of the playthrough, they will phase these ships out and start producing technology from the Clone Wars era. And they will also militarize great deal. So now they have fairly small fleets and basically no real invasion fleets. The Republic is only an economic superpower, but not a military one. But when they reach the Clone Wars, they will get much more difficult.
And the Kingdom of Boron, we thank you for your valuable assistance.
Let's actually hop into another E-Wing.
Command accepted.
Oh, that was a bit too close for comfort. Damn.
Terraformer.
Cause my own stupidity.
Target is now in firing range.
In the name of Queen Atreus and the Kingdom of Boron, we thank you.
Yeah, shut up. But the fleet itself shouldn't have any problems. Maybe you can see the two Katana ships in the background. They are behind this powerful Sith fleet. Right there. And if I claim them now, then I fear I will lose at least one of them. So we need to bring our fleet and then fight those Sith so that we can secure the ships. We have two Star Destroyers docked at these two stations. So this is going to be interesting if they join the fight. And I'm not sure if it's worth the risk going for these ships. We might delay that. Let's see. The satellite factories are really starting to pay off. They have made about 1 million credits by now. And I have sent my large transport on a trip down to the Yellow Corporation and sold the foods and some of the other minerals that I don't need, that my miners have brought in. And now we have a nice sum of cash in our pocket and we can start to buy the rest of the resources we need in our second outpost. So most of my resources are still here. But I have a bit of ship crafting components in this outpost and now I want to fill the rest. So we are setting up the trade settings. And here I'm using the template from my first shipyard. Going to load it. And here I have just set up the basic resources. And I think this is something that a lot of players are not doing. And that is limiting your export thresholds. So usually what I believe most people are doing is having those set at the maximum. For example, like with the satellites right here, the export level is at 20k, which is the highest. And if you do that for everything, then you will never sell any resource. And I have tweaked it so that we are staying inside a certain range. So if, for example, our stock level of chemicals is dropping below 10,000, then a trader is buying more of that. But if we have more than 3 times of that, then we are also selling. So we are not stockpiling a huge amount of resources. And if we have anything too much, then we are making money from it. So that's really the key to get a healthy income, in my opinion. And with that cash reserve, we can also make our move against the Empire. I have sent the fleet to this sector. Doesn't seem like they have any strong defenders here. Also this sector seems empty. And I have built a few more ships for our main fleet, mostly the smaller ones. We have one Katana Dreadnought, so it should be easy to take this sector. But what we should do is blacklist the Imperial faction, so that our traders are getting away from their stations and their sectors. Since they are all clumped in this corner, we don't need to blacklist any other factions because there's no risk that we traverse Imperial sectors. Yeah, we have a lot of factories here, so it will take a while to destroy them. But afterwards we have a nice sector to set up our energy economy. 13 factory slots. That will be quite a few solar plants. And then crystal fabs, and we can also produce microchips and sell them to the green factory, the green company. That will be our second staple for a passive income. And then we also have our 4 sectors and established our empire. I have also built the jump drive core factory, and it's working. I think we already got the first batch of jump drive cores, so we can set up a 3rd jump beacon and connect the other 2 sectors. We are lucky that the Empire is currently at war with everyone, except the rebels. That's funny. And the New Republic has a powerful guard fleet in the sector north to the one that we want to take. And that fleet will shield us in case this Imperial battle group decides to respond to our attack down here. That could potentially happen, and they are quite powerful. They have a Star Destroyer and 2 frigates. So that fleet could definitely beat us, but they would have to pass through the New Republic sector. And there's a powerful carrier waiting on them. So our chances are not bad for a surprise attack. Alright, let's mess them up. The fleet is here. Let's set the Imperials to foe and invade. We don't have a single military ship in the sector, so this should be a cakewalk. Now look who is here! An Imperial task force, already invading my sector. Let me put some dirt in your eye. The looters are on the way, and since I'm using strong corvettes, they don't have the slightest trouble to defend my sector. Pretty nifty, eh? That's the best thing about Mayhem. You really have to balance your offense and your defense. Don't put all your offensive ships into one invasion. Always keep a look on your back. And ships in reserve. And of course we are removing this ugly satellite. Because that is actually a requirement that enemy battle groups can invade your sector. They need vision. At least on default settings, I think you can also disable that. And our DP-20s don't have the slightest problem against the Gozantis. I think these are one of the most powerful corvettes in the game. But they are quite expensive, so I don't want to spam them. For some good early game firepower, we will stick mostly to fighters. Like this E-wing here. Seems like our first major battle in this playthrough will be in this sector. Because the Imperials have just decided to attack it. This battle group is headed for CO's Buxoid. And the Republican Guard is just passing my invasion fleet to defend their sector. And I don't think they will make it. Well, it's unclear. So it could be worth it to break our attack and help them out defeat the Imperials. That would remove this battle group from our northern flank. And I think it's the only bigger fleet they have in the area. So this could be worth it. Yeah. That's what we're gonna do. When we have killed this crystal factory, we will follow the New Republic fleet through the North Gate and help defending their sector. Seems like we arrived just in time. Let's get in position and help out. I don't want to take too many losses though, because the New Republic will also be our enemy. Just want to get rid of that Imperial battle group. So we take our forces, keep them together, keep the scanning range low, and just let the New Republic do most of the legwork. While we hunt some of the stragglers. Fighters are now much more survivable in fleet battles because they will retreat much earlier when their shields get low. And then they will fly a bit away to recharge. And that makes for much more natural battles. Because you will have some fighters even at the end of it, and it's not just the capital ships which are going against each other. So I like that a lot from what I have seen so far. Now let's go in. Try to stay alive in our fighter. Our ships are now swinging by and attacking them from the rear. It should minimize our losses. And it seems to be working well. The corvettes are engaging, just like planned. That was the Acclamator, and now we have the Gladiator as the last capital ship of the Imperials in this entire area. So that should be really worth it. And this will ensure that we get those two sectors here without too much resistance. Alright, we won, and I think we lost only a couple of A-wings. Very satisfied with that. Now back into invading this sector. Now after you have won such a major battle, and especially in the early game, you can often find undefended sectors like these in the area and then go in, pop a few miners and raid them. So you should not fear to scout ahead a bit, maybe kill a few of those ships. They will often drop valuable loot, crystals, minerals. And then you can reroute a trader that you have in the area and tell him to pick it up. And that's again probably 1 million that's just lying around here in crystals. But definitely keep an eye on your surroundings, because eventually the sector alert that gets issued when you kill something will draw police squadrons like these. And in the early game they are not too dangerous. These are 6 TIE fighters and a Gozanti. So maybe hire those mercenaries and take them out quickly. That is very cheap. And we have a couple of advanced TIE fighters to help us out. I'm trying to get their attention and pull them away from my freighter who is collecting the loot. Let's hope the mercenaries are doing their job. Because I don't have any backup ship to jump into. Yeah, and they are going in. Gozanti is launching the ties. And you can see those little evasive flying maneuvers they are doing. That's when they lose their shielding. And the pilot is freaking out. And then he's flying away, trying to make a run for it. That's also a thing in Star Wars Mayhem 3. And after your traders have picked up the wares, you can just reissue their trading command. Well, if you have an open trader slot, but since I have activated the auto assignment for traders, another ship that I had docked at this outpost has already taken over when I pulled these traders for the pickup job. So I'm just telling them to go home, but if you don't have auto assignment for your worker ships on, then the trader slot will still be available and you can just reissue the command and the traders will automatically drop the loot off. So this is a very good way to collect stuff when you see it. Just pick a trader from nearby, grab it and then restart the command. These goods will eventually be sold or dropped at your outpost, depending on your trade settings. It didn't take long to take out the 2 imperial sectors with ease, and we now have access to the Green Corporation, which is trading in some important resources, for example chemicals. That means we can buy chemicals from them and we don't have to produce it ourselves as much, and then directly convert it into Dura steel and produce more hull plating. And we can also sell stuff to them, most importantly, I think would be Beskar, ore, and motivators, because we can produce both of that just using energy cells, and this will also give us a nice income. I've already ordered the appropriate factories that we need for this. And we have officially entered the middle part of the playthrough. This is a very important concept for Star Wars Mayhem 3. Your entire game is split into 3 stages, and these are a really important aspect and will change the galaxy on a deep level. And because that's so important, I added this info section to your journal that will tell you exactly if you are in the early, the mid, or the late game, what you need to do to get to the next stage, and what are the special rules which are currently active. So this one right here tells us that we are now in the mid game and that the factions are now building stronger fleets. When you start your game, you will notice, if you have played Mayhem 3 before, that the wars are running on a much lower intensity, so there are not many sector ownership changes, because the fleets and especially the battle groups are very weak. And we have now reached the stage where this changes. And after some time we will have much stronger fleets, so you can plan your playthrough around that. We also have a special rule active that prevents any faction from blobbing out of control and growing too large. In Star Wars Mayhem 3 this cannot happen and is reserved for the final act, so that you have a nice progression going on as the player is building his empire. He is unlocking more chaos and more possible changes in the galaxy, basically. And that is paced much closer to your own progress and less random chaos than before. I know that there are probably players who don't like that, who exactly like this challenge, this random challenge vibe that Mayhem 3 had, but this is just different. In Star Wars Mayhem 3 your playthrough is a lot more guided, and most of the replayability and the excitement comes from your own choices. So you can decide to attack certain factions or ally with other factions, and this will completely change your experience generally. But there is not much that can randomly change on its own if you do nothing. So, and we also have certain factions which are getting boosted or nerfed in different stages of the game, and this will also be displayed here, so that you can also choose what you want to do with them. So right now we can see the Mandalorians and the Republic are especially gifted, and they are getting better production than other factions. And this will change once we reach the late game. We can see it's clearly communicated that we need to own 20 sectors to do that, or alternatively we can also complete a quest. For example, if we now decide to attack the Republic and they are becoming very strong and give us trouble, then we can enforce to end their bonus phase, so to speak, their golden age, if we manage to reach the late game. That's just the way how Star Wars Mayhem 3 is working, and this is what's creating a different experience.